1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Arr, there, mateys. Welcome back to Inside Movies Galore as we go ships ahoy tonight with our fellow mates here. So, why don't you, Brandon, tell us what's there for us tonight, or you'll not get played.
Well, we've definitely saved one of the best for last, which on our votes, this one got more votes, easily double the votes of our highest other offering. And that is the 1985 Richard Donner classic, The Goonies. I mean, I don't think there was any doubt that it was going to be in this once it was nominated. To me, The Goonies is something classic, and we're going to get into that once we get into first impressions. But essentially, you have this group of kids who are about to lose their home to foreclosure, but they stumble upon a treasure map that opens up possibilities beyond anything that they could have expected before. So we'll go ahead and we're going to just jump on into those first impressions. And since Dave, you're usually hosting, I'll give you that opportunity to hit your first impressions first.
Alrighty. I was introduced to this movie fairly early on. I don't. Well, I wasn't of the age to go to the theaters, but because I was just born a year before that. But when it was on TV, I would often watch it, and I have a fairly decent thoughts of this film. I mean, it was an adventure film. It may not have as much of a cult movie type of movie in my mind, but it definitely has some decent callbacks to like pirate movies of the age. You know, I mean, the ship it was fantastically piratey-ish looking. I mean, you got the dead skeletons going on. I mean, you got the doubloons. I mean, come on, what's more to that? But you know, this movie also has a backstory going on that I think is very near to some people's hearts too. You know? So, I also like the fact that the guy who plays Sloth is actually originally from Oak Creek, Wisconsin, which I have found over the years that my family, part of my family, are actually founders of Oak Creek. So that being said.
Well, what about you, Forrest? What's your take on The Goonies? Was it your first time watching it?
Oh no, absolutely not. First time I saw it, I was maybe about. Well, I was born the Goonies came out 2 years before I was born. But I, but it was also, I was on TV a lot. When I was growing up, my mom, whom I think she must have taken my older cousin to see it when it came out, because I remember she was the one who introduced it to me. And it was eventually it just became one of those things that like if it was ever on TV, I would watch it. Eventually, I did get it on DVD for Christmas when I was about 14, and so that was one that. So it was a movie that's been regular. I watch it at least once a year, and I remember like winning pub trivia thanks to it one time. And yes, I do have tonight. I have the Superman logo as my avatar, mainly because first of all, my birthday is this Friday. I have the same birthday as Christopher Reeve, who was in Superman, also directed by Richard Donner, and also for Sloth. So,
how about?
It's an all-time favorite.
Oh, good. I'm glad to see we got some likers of the film here. How about you, Mo? Did you get to see this the first time today, or a little bit earlier?
Oh, yeah, same kind of basic thing as Forrest. I saw it as a real little kid, and it just became a frequent watch. I'd pretty much try to watch it almost every time I was at my uncle's house, or it's, one of those movies, if it's on TV, you sit through it,
Oh, yeah.
Like Christmas Story, or, just all those great movies like that. Stand By Me. another good example of one that, you know, if it's on, you watch the damn thing. Doesn't matter what day it is. So it's always been that kind of a thing for me, and I try to hit it like once a year, once every other year at least. So.
And often, Stand By Me is often a film that is often mentioned hand in hand with this film. So, I think Lord of the Flies was another one that people tended to go to.
Slightly different tonally.
I drew a lot of, for me as a kid, I drew a lot. For me, I also drew a lot of like a lot of Indiana Jones comparisons. I think a lot of that has to do with, you know, Spielberg, and also the presence of Ke Kwan, who was in Temple of Doom before the Goonies. As well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Well,
and it very literally is like a treasure hunt for little kids, you know.
It is.
Yeah.
What about you, Jake? What is this your first time?
It's definitely not my first. It was first time seeing it on Blu-ray. I really honestly couldn't say my full story with this one because I don't know. Because, well, we've kind of alluded to it already, but I'm basically apparently the oldest one who's spoken so far. I know you got me beat, so don't feel bad about that. But anyway,
thanks.
I know that my people my age, like my high school class, I remember distinctly going, I think it was the Florida trip, where they said something about like what movie to watch, and everyone's like, Goonies, you know, that's like, our age is like, it's one of the movies, like even probably more so for my particular group, even probably more so than movies like Stand By Me and what have you. But I couldn't say for certain how many times I saw bits and pieces of it over the years. I probably saw bits and pieces without even realizing it because it probably was on TV quite a bit. Certainly certain parts of the film are so familiar that I probably know them from my childhood. If I were to wager how many times I've seen the full movie, this may have been the third or fourth viewing. And it's certainly the first one in a couple years. But yeah, I'm not sure fully how many times. It is one that I feel I was initially kind of unimpressed by, and it's grown on me. Like each time I see it, I like it more. And each time I see it, I remember it better. So maybe this time I'll remember it well.
See, now for me, this, well, as it's been pointed out, I'm an old man in this group. But I remember this came out when I was 6 years old. Matter of fact, since it came out in June of 85, I was pretty much right on the edge of 5 and 6 at that point. So I did not see this in theaters, but I saw it probably about a year later. I can't exactly remember where or how, but I know I saw it not long after because I was very young. It was somewhere 7 or 8 when I saw it for the first time. And I really liked it. It was like Indiana Jones, but for me, because, you know, kids my age or older really are having those adventures. And that was just really cool for a kid at the time. And as I got older and I kept watching the film over and over again, I kept getting more and more out of the film because a lot of the film you can enjoy as a child. There's a lot of it that you can only get as a child. And a lot of it that you can only really kind of get as an adult, which is why I think, and Dane, before he left, he had said in his opinion it was okay, but nothing, you know, super special there. But he had only just seen it as an adult.
And only once. And like I said, you know, you get more with reviewing. It's kind of disappointing that he ducked because it's nice to get different levels of interest.
Yeah. But I've noticed that in general that it's one of those movies that that the older you see it, it seems like everybody I know who saw it at an older age didn't care for it. Whereas like anybody who grew up with it loves it.
You see, it's kind of ingrained, so I can't really say, because he had said like Back to the Future was timeless, but then it said like that. Well, he saw that when he was young. So again, when you're young and you see something like that, there is a fine line. And we talked about this at Power Rangers. We talked about this when we did Scrooged. And we talked about this in National Lampoons.
Yeah.
I think Home Alone among those kinds of movies too.
Of course, Princess Bride, whatever. But Brandon, you mentioned something that I've just got to comment on. You said this was Indiana Jones for someone your age. I grew up with Raiders of the Lost Ark, so to me, it's like that was more the one that was my childhood.
And you see, I didn't see the Raiders of the Lost Ark until I was in my late teens.
That one and
around the same time.
I think I saw Last Crusade not long after it came out, but the other two I had seen before then.
See, I've seen bits and pieces of this movie over time on TV, but I guess I would have to say that for the discussion, this is the first time I've actually fully watched it from start to finish.
Oh, really?
So, it's like the scenes that I remember over time are classic to me. So that part I get as a child. When you have this awe looking at like the pirate age as well, and I didn't even realize that Chinese kid was the same kid from Indiana Jones until like my late teens.
Well, those were like his major roles,
I know, but
he kind of retired from acting.
Still,
after that.
I remember him as you funny Dr. Jones, you funny, but.
And of course, you remember he was in your favorite film that you showed us not long ago, the Encino Man, which I mentioned in that discussion. One weird bit of trivia is apparently that brief scene with Keighley Kwan and Sean Astin. It's like the only time any of the stars have gotten back together on film, which is kind of weird.
So Sean Astin voiced Raphael in Nickelodeon's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series, and that series also had Corey Feldman.
But they're still not on screen together.
Episodes.
Yeah,
that's not on screen together, but that kind of counts.
But yeah, it does. I hadn't even thought about that though. Which one is that? Is that the older one or the newer one?
No, the newer one.
Okay.
Well, why don't we move into characters? Come to think of it, why don't we start with the Goonies? We've got, of course, a whole bunch of them. We got the younger group and the older group. The younger group are really the ones that are the Goonies. They're the kind of outcasts, and they kind of bind together in this and become the Goonies, which is more of a slur term.
Well, we've got
used
Mikey.
against them. And Mikey is their leader, really. It was Sean Astin's character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
a very young Sean Astin, to be honest.
Well, they were all younger in this
role.
And I loved how in the commentary, and if you haven't watched the commentary on any of these, because they've had the commentary since the DVD, one, don't take any of what they say too seriously, because a lot of the time, I want to say Richard Donner's sitting there going, yeah, this was all real, and they're like, no, it's not real. So he kind of throws out a lot of false facts throughout. But a lot of the time, I remember when he's actually throwing away the inhaler at the end, and Corey Feldman makes a comment, he's beaten his addiction.
Some irony right there.
But what are your thoughts on the character, of Mikey?
Well, Mikey is a very interesting character of the whole group, because he's kind of like the main focal point, because his grandfather is this guy who like knew all this stuff about pirates and knew about One-Eyed Willie, which is like the character that apparently this town has this myth, and nobody's been able to find this treasure. And there was one guy that supposedly found a key that was supposed to do something to find the treasure, but he's never been heard from since. So
just a couple pop.
but obviously there is some kind of mythos here in this town. But also we have the backstory of like Mikey's father is under the axe by these foreclosing guys that are looking to take away their actual ancestral home. So you got that whole backstory going on, and it all is kind of related to Mikey. Now, Mikey's brother, which is Brand, right?
Yep, same name as me.
Now he's of the older group, at least in my mind, because he's not really part of the group until like he goes on this adventure with them. And
they're kind of preteens and teenagers. And
he's sort of the annoying older sibling that's kind of annoyed by the younger kids, and
Well, since we're kind of going all into it, why don't we just take the Goonies as a whole? We've got Mikey, the leader.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Brand, who's his older brother. We've got Chunk, who is, of course, the comic relief.
Worth noting that this is where Thanos gets his start.
Yeah. Let's see. You've got Mouth, played by Corey Feldman.
Right.
You've got. And then, of course, you've got Andy, which is one of the main female characters, and played by Carrie Green. And, of course, Martha Plimpton playing Steph, who is her friend.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Ke Huy Quan, which is Data. And those are the Goonies, essentially. Some of them were technically not Goonies, but by the end, they were all Goonies at the end. Because it kind of went from... It's one of those things where it was sort of like My Hero Academia, where the guy's always been given the name Deku as sort of an insult to him. But then they kind of took that name on as sort of a badge of honor, and just like this. And they look at it and they wear it like with pride. So, what are y'all's thoughts on the Goonies themselves? Since we were kind of moving character to character anyway, why don't we throw that out?
Technically, a Goonie is any of several albatrosses, especially the black-footed albatross and the Elacean albatross that dwell primarily on the islands in the Pacific Ocean, often near naval bases.
Well, and isn't there that
silly
whole
or
thing,
awkward person or thing? A goon.
So, any thoughts?
Like Goonies or boobies?
Any thoughts on the individual characters? Actually, Forrest, you're about to say something.
No, I was just saying. You were saying about Goonies and boobies, and so I just threw out booby traps.
Booby traps.
What's that?
Booty trap.
Yeah, Mikey is always mispronouncing things, but you find out he gets from his mother.
Well, the Goonies is the name of the group in which they have gathered together because they're friends in the neighborhood, and they just seem to be like the outcasts of their town. Kind of like the essential of saying that they're townies, except they're Goonies. So
they explicitly say it's like they call it the Goondocks, and so you can think sort of like Boondock. It's like a variation on Boondocks, basically. So they're basically
they're like the middle class people that live down by the coast, and the rich people want to come in and like turn their shit into a golf course,
Exactly.
So they need all this money to like prevent that from happening. Mikey, I've always really enjoyed because he's the one with the adventurous spirit and big old balls of steel. That's like, let's go look for this damn pirate treasure to save the neighborhood.
He's just like really earnest and really. Like, he really cares about his friends and his family.
Mm-hmm.
He does have that adventurous spirit, but mostly he is just trying to, he's like, this is a chance to maybe do something, even if it fails, at least we're trying, So,
and Sean Astin,
he wants to save their home,
Yeah. He's definitely more thoughtful of others than he was in Encino Man. That's a little bit more.
And I mean, you first really introduced to him when they get to the house, which we're introduced to Chunk, which is the next one down the line on the cast list anyway, where he's actually watching the car chase, and he ends up, of course, screwing over his drink and his pizza while he's doing it because he's so boisterous about the car chase.
Milkshake.
So what do y'all think of Chunk? Him and his truffle shuffle.
He is hilarious throughout the film. I mean, the whole introduction to Chunk is he comes up to the end of the fence, and Mouth, meaning Corey Feldman, makes him do this chocolate dance, which is apparently lifting up his shirt and jiggling his stomach.
Yeah,
well, I think the truffle shuffle meant like truffles like a pig would get, which it was supposed to be derogatory.
Yeah.
First, I was always a fan of Chunk's for Chunk. I was always a fan of the interrogation scene.
Yes.
His confession.
Tell us everything.
He just completely goes off.
Bad thing you've done. And they do it with such a straight face.
Yeah.
Apparently, the real life actor did go to a fat camp. He didn't lie about that, but he did not pull what Chunk did.
Well, Chunk was he's one of those ones where, again, I feel like certain scenes involving Chunk I must have seen many times because I have fully memorized certain bits of this movie. And one thing that I have fully memorized is his voice. And honestly, it's kind of grating at times. He is kind of grating at times. He is very whiny. But when you consider how much he's picked on, it makes sense. But I'm kind of alternate between being exasperated and kind of pitying the fool. Yeah.
I think one of my favorite lines in here comes from Chunk, because when he's sitting there handcuffed next to Sloth, he has this baby Ruth bar, and he throws it at him, and Sloth just literally takes both of his chains, rips them from the wall, and grabs the thing, and he goes like, "Man, you are probably the only one that's more hungry than me. I am."
He says something like that. I think he said you like chocolate more than I do. Yeah.
I like that he was lying about Michael Jackson using his bathroom, and apparently Michael Jackson had visited the soundstage on multiple occasions, so it's kind of funny.
Actually,
me and Corey Feldman had that.
The Chunk.
Yeah, it was interesting that Mouth was the one trying to say, "Oh man, that's just bull," all that stuff. It's well known at this point that Feldman and Jackson were buds. But
So-
in some way,
Well, he wears the damn
Oh,
Michael
yeah,
Jackson gear like half the time when he's out.
I mean, they're talking about how he was given the glasses during the time, and they're like, "You would never take those glasses off. You treated them like they were the Holy Grail." But you got to keep in mind that Michael Jackson back then even now there's still a lot of reverence for him, and for good reason. But back then there wasn't any of this shadow of whatever that we've got now. I mean, back then. And I know how it was back in those times in the 80s. He was just like the king of pop. He was like the ultimate star. So that would have just been awesome. That would have been amazingly cool if I was a kid and this really awesome like music star gave me his sunglasses. I mean, I'd be like wearing them all the time too. Now, speaking of Corey Feldman and Mouth, and was it me or... I mean, I watched Stand By Me, which occurred not too long after this.
About a year. Goonies.
You know,
86.
and I was able to pick him out very easily then, but he wasn't as easy. Now, the voice, after a while, you can catch it. But looking at him straight on, he's young enough that you can't quite recognize Corey Feldman with it for me. It wasn't a write-off for me. It took me a minute to I kind of like had to look at it sideways, knowing it was him.
Probably helped that we had somewhat recently done Rock and Roll High School Forever.
Yeah.
And of course, he did have a brief appearance in Maverick as well, another Richard Donner film. So we've covered 2 Corey Feldman appearances this year. So that helped a little bit with the recognition. But you're right, he's so much younger.
But he's such an interesting character. I mean, what did y'all think of Mouth?
Well, I tell you, one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when the Spanish housekeeper comes in.
The translation.
And he's telling her, no, the heroin goes in this drawer and the coke goes in this drawer.
If you do a bad job, you'll be locked up here for a week with only bread and water.
And he must have been telling the truth about being fluent in Spanish to be able to do that.
What about you, Mo? You were about to say something about Mouth.
Oh, Mouth is fun. I mean, especially as a little kid, I think he was my favorite character for a long time just because he's got some funny lines in the movie, that whole bit. He's like that annoying friend you keep around because he says funny things sometimes, you know? So I think lots of people can relate to that too. So yeah, he's good fun.
What about you, Forrest? Did you have anything to say about any of the characters so far?
Oh, about any of the characters so far. I mean, Mouth, I mean, I think I did mention that he's like like you said, he's kind of obnoxious, but says the fun, but you keep him around because he's funny, and not just, but also he says things. This is something I noticed with a lot of older kids movies is that, for example, Mouth, he tends to say things that kids should not be saying, but it's so funny to hear him say it.
He curses the most out of all of them in the movie.
or like when he's mouthing off to the Fratellis when they first go into the restaurant. For me, I guess for me also Data. But even for me, like even when I was a kid, I always liked Data. He always had he was very smart. Could always come up with all sorts of different. Could create all sorts of gadgets and he was very smart. Very smart smart character.
Why don't we talk about Data? It's weird. Now, I should mention
that I'm half Asian, so he was all he was like one of the few Asian characters I could see on in a movie or television show growing up. So.
And it's kind of weird. He's a weird character because I loved him as a kid. I love the James Bond thing. I love the tech aspect where you just have all the cool gadgets. And it never really occurred to me, like it does as an adult with these cynical times, kind of. And I'm thinking, this could be looked at as problematic from the wrong perspective. More so in his role in Temple of Doom, but in this one as well. But what are y'all's thoughts on Data?
Well,
he's great. I mean, being a James Bond fan definitely doesn't hurt.
Oh yeah,
and he's cool. I think I was seeing Honey, I Shrunk the Kids a lot at the time too. So any movie with gadgets, I was sold on it. And
that moment between him and his father at the end, I always found that extremely touching.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I get a kick out of Data. I mean, he doesn't entirely speak full English yet either in this movie, so I think that aspect of the whole thing kind of makes him kind of unique. I mean,
there's times when he gets mad and stops speaking English. So I like that a lot.
I like the pinchers that he uses.
Shoes.
I get a kick out of the part where he's in front of the Fratellis and he's trying to get his puncher thing out and it just doesn't come out and then he gets whatever he pushes next, it gets him all wrapped up in them. You know.
Hey,
Well, I mean, there's actually a deleted scene, and again, it's great watching a lot of these over again,
mhm.
where you got to see more of the the little plastic teeth that apparently are very strong. They can grip onto rock.
Yeah.
And of course, they get one of the Fratellis and the Nards, as they say with Wolfman, but there's a one where he accidentally uses it and it hits mouth there, and they're having to get.
You know? Yeah. Well, and it definitely. I mean, I like the kid. I really do. I mean, I did watch Temple as a kid, and I always liked Short Round. And again, I like Data in this film. As someone that has, and I'll admit, Forrest, I'm curious your actual viewpoint because you're, I guess, have a more personal take. But I've always been obsessed with everything Asian. Partly it's because I have some Asian family. Partly because I did grow up with the Karate Kid. And I always loved Mr. Miyagi, and I loved Short Round and all of them. And then now looking back, I'm like, Hollywood could have done better and should have done better. And I have mixed feelings about these roles now. But
Yeah, looking back, some of these characters in these movies are kind of like hit or miss. Like to me, the worst offenders are probably Long Duck Dong in 16 Candles and Takashi in Revenge of the Nerds. Mr. Miyagi. I mean, even though in real life, Pat Morita was actually born and raised here in the U.S. and he had to fake an accent for that role.
And I believe that Miyagi, I believe Morita did a brilliant job with the performance.
Oh yeah.
I just feel like the role probably was more thinly written than it should have been. You know, more stereotypical than it should have been. But he did great with what he was given.
I think in the first movie he did it great in what he was doing, because that's the first movie where you get his wax on, wax off thing going on, and you don't get that as much in the sequels, you know.
I keep thinking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as like wax on, mouth off. But we've got our two female characters, and we've got our girly girl, which is Andy, and we have our kind of more smart mouth, sarcastic girl, Steph.
And she's kind of a nerdy girl too, in a sense.
Well, she's more in line with the popular kids, but she does wear glasses, and she's more intelligent. You can tell, and she kind of flaunts that a little bit more. Whereas Andy's just a straightforward girly girl character. So, what did y'all think? Do y'all think those are the right ways to describe them, or do y'all think that there's a lot more depth to them than that?
Not a bad way to describe them. I do like that Martha Plimpton went on briefly for about a decade. She had a healthy career in indie films, and there's at least 3 films, Beautiful Girls, Pecker, and 200 Cigarettes that she was in that I, during my indie phase, my would-be critic phase, I was like, oh, these are great films, and I still like them. I still have a soft spot for them, but I like that she ended up going that route when I found that out. But in this movie, she's kind of...
Although she was in 1986's The Mosquito Coast, which was a pretty good film for her.
I remember that one.
Also in Parenthood with Steve Martin, Keanu Reeves, Rick Moran. Parenthood.
Oh yeah, I never saw that either. Strangely. Yeah.
And you know what's weird?
I like them. I mean, they're.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, dude.
I like them as the girl characters. You know, you get some surprise love interest action in there, which is cute and all that, and it leads to that part where Mikey kind of gets some experience down there in the caves, and I always thought that was hilarious as a kid. Like he made out with his brother's
would-be
girlfriend kind of.
Because his brother didn't want to be bothered with her complaining. He's like, go see what she wants.
I have to say, like, that part where she's freaking out, it annoyed the heck out of me. But it's like, do I have a beautiful body? It's like, he's like, yes, you have a very beautiful body.
Discussion, I think,
narrow it down.
I think it was Dane that was talking about screamers in the previous film. She kind of was a screamer in this one, and it was kind of it get a little grating at times.
I think you could put her, Willie, and Vicky Vale as the holy trinity of 80s screamers.
I'll admit, as a young child, I'm sure I had a little bit of a crush on the character Steph as a child. I always liked the kind of nerdy, slightly more intelligent women in the movies.
Yeah, and I always thought Andy. I was more of an Andy kind of guy. Like I always thought she was cute. Thought Carrie Green was cute.
She is.
I did. I actually did recently go on because she was like the one actor from the Goonies who didn't really have much of a career outside of that movie. So I went and found a bunch of her movies online and watched all of them, or what I could find, like the Goonies, Lucas, Three for the Road, and this low budget sci-fi flick called Blue Flame.
There's a few. There's a couple of them here. Jeff Cohen was another one that didn't have a huge career afterwards. Some of them had kind of like they kind of went off and Kaylee Kwan kind of went off into other things. Like he's done some movies since then, but
I will say that Chunk lost his chunk. So
he did.
Oh God, yeah.
It's a lot different now.
It was that fat camp. It helped him.
Right.
He's actually top lawyers now.
Yeah. So you can't have our heroes without our main villains, which are the Fratellis. So we've got, of course, Mama Fratelli, played by Anne Ramsey. And we've got Francis, played by Joe Pantoliano, and Jake by Robert Davi. And to me, they are iconic as villains. They really are. And there are other villains. You've got like the rich guy villains, but they're kind of just off to the side. You got like the douchey teenagers. Again, they have their little bits, but they don't stand out like these three.
Well, Anne Ramsey would stand out anywhere, and I really need to see. I need to see her movie "Throw Mama from the Train." I've heard good things. I just
it is classic.
But she does have a couple of roles I've seen. She was in Scrooged, and I like that she played the quote rough masseuse in an early episode of Columbo. I remember that role. That was kind of amusing.
I loved her in Throw Mama from the Train. Yeah, she was.
Actually, here's one you need to see with Anne Ramsey. It's called Deadly Friend. It's a Wes Craven movie.
Oh hell yes, dude!
She has
basketball.
She has one of the most ridiculous. Yes, the decapitation by basketball. Oh my god! Like one of the great. That is one of the most creative, most like laugh out loud deaths I have ever seen in a horror film.
I forgot about that. That one's a Frankenstein-ish type feature, isn't it?
And she's just an awesome leader of the.
And
I mean, you see her as a mob boss or a Godfather type character.
Oh yeah, I mean they're just terrifying people, man. They're gonna put little Chunk's hand in a blender. I mean, it's you can't believe that they've done it before.
Robert Davey, he's got a hefty career behind him.
Oh yeah. Well, he's actually trained opera singer apparently, so that was kind of cool that they had him do a little bit in there.
Yeah.
He's set to play Jake in the Goonies, so Goonies 2, supposedly.
Well, and of course, Jake and Francis don't quite get along with each other.
Well, and of course, Joe Pantoliano was already well known as a heavy before this one. He was in Risky Business, Eddie and the Cruisers, and some other stuff before even this one. And then he, of course, would go on to all kind of good stuff, notably the Matrix and Memento and other stuff. And cats and dogs. You can't forget.
Yes. Best role.
He's always a treat for sure.
Sopranos.
I enjoy him.
21 episodes in The Sopranos. I still need to watch that show.
Now they also
one episode.
and they also have a hidden brother,
Yes.
a deformed brother.
Yes.
Who is named Sloth by John Matuzak, who is of course a pro football player at the time, and of course as Dave has noted, fairly local over to Wisconsin there, and of course
I read that he worked for the Oakland Raiders at one point, and when you first see Sloth, I believe he's wearing a Raiders jersey. And that may have been one of the reasons why my school was particularly fond of the Goonies, because my high school blatantly ripped off the logo and name of the Raiders for their football team. So, yeah, I actually helped paint their logo on the entryway to the school.
Apparently he, the guy, he has been in Caveman, the Ice Pirates, One Crazy Summer, including the Goonies, and then of course he played on some TV shows like MASH, The Dukes of Hazzard, Hunter, the A-Team, some of those, you know.
I like how Robert Daugherty played a character in Die Hard called Big Johnson.
So I mean, you gotta love Sloth. I mean, as a kid, I loved the character Sloth. I mean, he kind of scared me when I first saw him. Actually, come to think of it, how many of y'all actually, when you first get introduced to Sloth, I mean, was it just like, I mean, for me, it was like he was scary at first, but as you got to know him, he was like one of my favorite characters as a child. I don't know if it was the same for y'all, but
he's a likable guy.
Oh yeah, dude, he was terrifying. Like that first initial introduction to him is terrifying, and then it's got kind of that, there's no other way to say it. It's got that like Monster Squad vibe almost, where there's like the monster of the movie, but then they become friends with it. And I've always loved movies that did
to
that.
Me, he's always
shit
had
like
that,
little monsters, you know.
To me, he's always had that Hunchback of Notre Dame look to him. So.
Oh, definitely.
I will always remember where he's appears on the pirate ship and he's like, "Hey, you guys," and you know that's just like iconic right there.
It's so classic, such a good scene too. Like it rivals anything in legit pirate movies, you know.
So, why don't we, I guess, move? Does anybody have any other characters that they feel need to be talked about that we kind of missed? I mean, you got like some side characters, but otherwise, anything like important.
Just the fact that they had had your typical boyfriend who was talking smack about a woman behind her back for a moment, you know.
Oh yeah.
Well, he was that kind of guy that you had in high school. He was the like total jerk that usually had the girl, but the girl looked and saw all of that.
Where he tried to kill Brand, like holding him against the car when he's just getting faster and faster, and yeah. Of course, a guy like that sees a guy his age on a little girl's bike, he's going to do something, but still.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing is it's there. So I'm gonna start on the. I gotta run and do something and come back, but I want to start just throwing through the plot. This is one of those movies. I just feel like it's such a big movie. I'm gonna ditch my normal thing of just basic summary. And we're just going to go through, I'm going to just cover swaths of it. Of course, we start out with the movie with the police chase. And this part I do feel is iconic, where you come upon Jake having hung himself in jail. And then he comes upon the note. And the note's like, "Are you stupid? Did you really think I was going to hang myself?" And the big car chase that ensues as Mama Fratelli and Francis come to break him out of jail. And you see Francis, like, as the fire is going, just this like psychotic laugh as he like ignites it. It's kind of almost a freaky introduction to the Fratellis and the villains of the film, but also the car chase is used to introduce all the kids in the film. With that just initial car chase leading up to the eventual beach race that ended it, what are y'all thoughts on that general run while I run real quick?
Oh, I love that scene, man. That's where the music hits too. Like you're getting that sweet soundtrack as it's all going on. The beach part of it, like how they blend into the beach races, which I feel like there was lots of beach race footage in movie and TV for a while. I have like vague memories of seeing it in other movies, and then of course on stuff like Baywatch and things like that. I don't know if it's still a big thing, that beach racing, but just everything about that whole opening and the way they introduce the characters is just great because it's got a big cast and you kind of get a little piece of everyone's personality right there in that. And,
although
I don't know,
one thing that I find interesting is that it must have taken a little bit of cleverness for Jake to come up with this escape plan, and he does a decent job with it. But from then on, even from the moment where he meets his brother and mother in front of the jail, you're kind of like, this guy doesn't seem like he's the sharpest tool in this shed, You're like, how'd he come up with that escape plan?
I have a feeling his mother figured out how to do the escape. She's obviously the brains of that.
Yeah.
Apparently, my wife agrees with me on that one. Yeah. So, I mean, once you get done with the whole police chase, we finally start getting into the main story. We get some more introductions of the characters. I mean, of course, all of the characters get their full introduction, like Data being thrown into the garbage can, Andy doing the cheerleading, Steph having a very weird introduction where she's like dunking for crabs or something.
Yeah.
Okay, Mo, you're from close enough to that area of the world. Do y'all like dunk for crabs or something like that?
I've never experienced that. There are places where you can go throw like little mini crab pots into the ocean and get your own crabs, though. But I've never personally dunked for crabs.
Apparently, the one that plays the main character's mother also was in Die Hard. Apparently,
Ariel and Trainer.
Yeah. Yes.
Actually, you have her and Rosalita almost getting run over by the cars.
Her first ever appearance apparently was on Cheers. Very cool. And her first movie appearance was Romancing the Stone. That's a good pair of credits.
That's a good,
She was in all the Lethal Weapon movies too.
Yeah. Well, Richard Donner occasionally recycles his cast. He doesn't do it a huge amount, but yeah.
One other thing I thought was interesting about this, I don't know if y'all discussed it because I had to run out, was Chunk's introduction with that. And I talked a little bit about that, but the fact that he just goes, oh, shit, which for a kid, when I heard that for the first time, hearing another kid say that, people nowadays may not be able to understand what I'm talking about, but to hear that as a child in my day and age growing up, that was like, oh, no, you didn't. It's just that weird thing. It was sort of like when I saw South Park the movie the first time, and I was kind of just like, what the heck? Whereas if I was to go see it nowadays, it'd be like, oh yeah, it's just
South Park the movie. That one.
How dare a kid scream Barbra Streisand?
There were enough F-bombs in that movie.
Yeah. Well, it was still a relatively new thing. Like, again, we talked at length. One of our previous discussions, of course, was the classic film, The Princess Bride. And, of course, it was said repeatedly, and again, the other Richard Donner film, Maverick, we've talked about William Goldman and about how he said one of the best films that he was most proud of ever was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Now, according to my father, and I think I've heard this from other sources too, but from what I've heard, what my dad definitely said was that when they jump off the cliff and say, "Oh shit," that was the first time that was ever done in a movie. And so, yeah, maybe that's why Goldman's proud of that screenplay.
You never know, man. I mean, it definitely was a rarity. I don't think we really got truly foul-mouthed, like, young kids to, like, Superbad and stuff. So, I can see where it's impactful seeing a kid swear.
Oh, yeah. And I like how with this one, you definitely hear them say that and some other mild profanity throughout the movie. But even then, I read that the producers intentionally positioned most of the swearing so it could be easily bleeped out. And Dave, you did a little bit of a spoiler here with your background. Supposedly, they intentionally hid the pirate ship from the cast so that when they saw it for the first time, they were seeing it for the first time. And one thing that I was amused by was that supposedly Josh Brolin's reaction was so genuine they had to redo it.
Yeah, we'll actually have to talk about that pirate ship itself once we get to the special effects, because that was one heck of a special effect. Of course, everybody gets introduced. They all meet at kind of Mikey's house, and everybody kind of comes in their own unique way. Like Mouth just kind of comes in and just starts, he grabs a soda, starts hanging out. Well, we already talked about Chunk's entry.
And to be honest, Chunk, if Chunk hadn't have broken the back of that painting, they might not have found that map.
We're getting there. We're definitely getting there. But the fact, they also introduced the Rube Goldberg machines that are all throughout the movie, but they bring an extra charm to it. Who didn't love that backdoor opening? And who as a kid who as a kid thought it was really cool, and then who as an adult thought that'd be a pain in the butt to set back up again?
Yeah.
But of course,
sure. That stuff, again, though, comes back to the Honey, I Shrunk the Kid thing. Like, I just love a good, ridiculous gadget,
Right. Well, there was, the one part that was, wasn't it something like an arrow shot at chicken and it popped out an egg from fright or something like that?
Yeah.
It's, really leaving a lot to chance with that one.
Yep.
It's
and they did that again with the Pee-wee's Big Adventure. They used they used that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's just something fascinating about those.
Wasn't that the next year?
I think so. Or was in that? They were close to each other.
Actually,
Pee-wee's Big Adventure was the same year, actually.
Yeah, Pee-wee came out 2 months after the Goonies.
Yeah. Huh.
But hey, great minds think alike.
Exactly.
This was Tim Burton, so Tim Burton is also a very creative mind.
Well, very much so, yeah. This one, of course, you've got we've mentioned Richard Donner a few times, but written by Chris Columbus, produced by Steven Spielberg, and he also has a story by credit. So that's an interesting assortment of credits there. It's like Donner famously is not a fan of kids, but Spielberg and Columbus are known for their work with kids. And so, yeah.
One of the things that we'll have to talk about once when we do the after show, which will be Monday night, will be the Cyndi Lauper video.
Yeah.
Which I think we'll save that until then. Give people something to come back for.
That was the only bonus feature I had time to watch for this one. Maybe I'll get one of the commentaries before the other one. It'd be good.
So looking at this, of course, we get together, and of course, I'm just going to throw out this stuff pretty quick. Of course, Rosalita is talked about, and we have the whole scene where the statue of David is dropped, which helps introduce more. We've got the pizza issue, we've got the drink he destroyed, and now he destroyed the statue, which, of course, as David said, it introduces his clumsiness. It's like,
What
yo,
was-
let's go drop it. Oops.
What was that line? That's my mom's favorite part.
Yeah, it was my mom's favorite piece. And they glued it on
Where's
upside
my
down.
penis?
Yep.
What was it that? And I like the Corey Feldman line. It was like, "Well, you wouldn't be there if it wasn't."
Well, of course you like that. He's obviously aping Groucho Marx there, you know?
Yeah, and he tried the impression again of the. If you haven't gotten a chance to listen to the commentary, it is funny because, like I say, you don't get a ton of extra information, but they really kind of just sit there and just like have fun with it. And he tries again, like to do the Groucho Marx impression and all that on there. It's
Yeah.
but
They really do need to make sure to hit a Marx Brothers film sometime
we've
soon.
got to one of these days.
Yeah.
We also had, of course, the introduction to Rosalita and Mouth's introduction to Spanish, which does have a purpose other than comedic purpose, as we find out later.
Yeah.
But and we talked a little bit about the scene where basically she's doing this and he's supposed to be translating, where he's not exactly translating it correctly.
Yes, it's like the mother is going around barking out orders for what needs to be done to get ready for their departure the next day. And Rosalita is supposed to help in the process. And so she shows like the different drawers in like talking about different clothes and all that kind of stuff. And he translates like the coat goes here, and the heroin goes here, and the pot goes here.
Never mix the drugs.
Never mix it. Exactly.
And of course, they do go up back into the attic afterwards. And the reason why they're getting all this stuff going on is because this golf club has decided they're going to buy up all the land there and they're going to demolish it all and expand their country club. So, and I'm guessing they buy all these mortgages and they say, okay, now you either pay it all or you lose it. So, of course, it's very kind of somber. And you get up there and they go ahead and they get to look at, of course, Mr. Walsh's sexual torture devices, as Mouth had put it, up in the attic.
Mm-hmm.
And it leads them to discover. Oh, go ahead.
Well, okay. Well, I was just going through the quotes, and this is one of them here. And she's showing Rosalita, "This is my supply closet. You'll find everything you need: brooms, dustpans, insect spray. I would really like the house clean when they tear it down. Clark, can you translate?" A translates. "If you do a bad job, you'll be locked in here with the cockroaches for 2 weeks without food or water."
It's kind of weird. Why would they want the house clean if it's going to be torn down?
It makes no sense, but whatever.
So they go up in the attic and they discover the treasure map, as Dave has said, through Chunk kind of breaking the thing, which
I would say Chuck.
Which he ends up actually. This was on purpose by Mikey, knowing that Chunk was going to drop it. Mm-hmm. It's actually Chunk, and the actual name is CHUNK. And they end up, of course, they hand it to him because they knew he was going to break it. And then they tell you the story of One-Eyed Willie and the buried treasure.
Mm-hmm.
And that story that he tells it in such a way that makes you like wonder about whether, shit like this even existed, and he told it he told it like he had been told it, by someone of maybe our age, but hearing it through his words kind of brings it down to our kiddish type level. So,
well, what about you, Mo? Have you heard of any pirate tales from y'all's side of the coast?
Yeah, I think I don't think that was a thing.
It's a long way from the
that
Spanish Main.
You don't think
I'm pretty sure by the time people were sailing out here, they had it well underhand,
Or same with the fog. Same with the fog. Another one that's got where with pirates in the Pacific Northwest.
Maybe there's something going on that we don't know about, like these pirates, like You gotta admit, if you were robbing the Spanish Main, the last place that people were going to look for you is out by like Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
That's
I mean, who would have expected a pirate to like rob the ships there and sail all the way around South America and up the coast?
Oregon or
Well, and who would expect a famous pirate to go by the name of One-Eyed Willie?
The Spanish Inquisition.
Oh, yes. No one expects it.
Well, yeah, because the map was in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
is
And
where
I mean,
Mouth-
like that location aside, which would be a genius hiding spot, as Brandon put it. The whole idea of taking a ship and hiding it in a cave like that and collapsing the entrance and all that, I don't think that's too far fetched for like actual pirates, you know.
I mean, this dude was paid, killed his entire crew, so
Yeah, that's not very friendly.
And of course, the map being in Spanish, our comedic setup actually got a payoff. So now you've got somebody who can actually read the map.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they are thrown out, basically again reminded by the rich people, ha ha ha, we're going to take your shit. And
that's just how they said it too.
Essentially.
Yeah.
And they end up, I do like that the older brother's like, she's gone. It's like, is your mommy home? It's like, no, she's gone out to buy Pampers for us kids.
Yeah.
But he ended up, they had a very touching scene where you see the brothers actually hug, and that's actually a quite emotional scene. You have a couple of nice speeches amplified with the music there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Chunk, apparently the guy who played him said, yeah, because you're the fat kid, you always have to do all these takes of eating over and over again. And then he was extremely sick of whipped cream after that because he had to do it over and over and
I
over.
bet.
Yeah.
He should have taken lessons from Nick. Okay.
But what did y'all think of the initial scene where basically Mikey is trying to win them over on this whole deal?
Well, of course, I apologize if I didn't notice, but did you already mention that his mother had laid down the law about him not setting foot outside?
Oh, not yet, but
Okay,
that works into it because of the asthma.
Yes, he has the asthma, and his mother tells his brother, don't let him outside. So obviously his brother's not a big fan of the idea of them going on an adventure. And I like the part how they use his own exercise equipment to bind him to the chair.
Yeah, that's classic.
And then they flatten the Spike's tires.
Yes, that was.
And then,
just
of course,
savage.
when the mother and Rosalita come in, he's laid back on the chair, and he's like, "But Mom, help me out!" And she's just walking on through like nothing.
Exactly. She says something like, I told you that exercise equipment was dangerous or something like that.
Then she says basically, you better bring him back or I'm going to have you commit Hare Krishna. It's like it's Harry Carey.
All right, Carrie.
Yeah, I like that whole scene, man. It really sets up the spirit of the movie. And then even after that, they're still not fully taking it seriously. I think Mikey's like the only one until they sort of see the doubloon matches up with all the stuff. And then it starts to get a little more real. But it's just...
Well, it also gets a little more real once, Chunk, of course, recognizes the Fratellis, and I think by this point they've already kind of gotten into the restaurant before he really gets to let them know, hey, this is not good.
Well, of course, he stumbles on the chilled ice cream next to the.
That's even further.
Yeah, that is even further. First, they have and I wanted to relocate this one set of quotes that I had. It was like when Mama Fratelli is talking to the kids at first, and of course, Mouth decides to be
tongues here.
Well, yeah, right before that, like Mouth is being a little smartass, and he's placing his order. And let me see here. It was something like, I'll have the veal scallopini or something like that.
Fettuccine
And then-
1981.
What's that?
She was veal scallopini, fettuccine alfredo, and
Yeah.
bottle of fettuccine 1981.
Yeah, he said, I'll have a nice bottle of fettuccine Alfredo 1981. It's like he's trying to spout out all the Italian he can think of and obviously doesn't know it very well.
And of course, we have an attempted murder on the brother by the other person when he just hooks onto his arm with the car while he's on the bike and just drives it there until he's basically thrown off of the cliff. And those cliffs...
That's what I'm saying. That one jock was a jerk. He was,
What's interesting is that the jock that was Troy. That was played by the young kid who played Jesse in Rick Springfield's music video, Jesse's Girl.
He was also in Last American Virgin as the guy who basically cock-blocked Gary in that movie.
Well, that's not very nice. Well, anyway,
No, I want to say before we get into the restaurant, that location is very iconic, that area with the beach and the rocks.
Yep.
I know that there was a recent video, and I want all of our listeners, however many you are, to check this out. Like both Wet Movie 1 and the Goodwill Hunters, they took a trip up, and they did a bunch of Stand By Me and Goonies locations, and they went to the beach where those rocks were, which was pretty darn cool. And even went to the jail where the guy was held, the Fratelli brother was held, where they have a little Goonies dedication. Mo, did you say you actually went out there once or have been out there?
Oh yeah, a couple of times as like a younger kid, It's definitely a location that your family will eventually, do some tourist shit at.
How cool must that have been?
It's a good time.
Yeah.
It is neat, man.
One thing.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say one thing I alluded to earlier. IMDb lists that June 7th is officially Goonies Day. The mayor declared it Goonies Day during the 25th anniversary celebration. So they're fully conscious of this movie.
And they said that
yes,
people
very much.
That people in the house that Mikey is in, that house is still there, but they are not very happy about all the visitors that keep coming out.
I'll bet.
Yeah, they they don't like
those movie houses, man.
And
so it never got turned into a golf course. That's good, at least.
Yeah, if hey Mo, if you ever do a sojourn out there, you need to make a video and post that up there.
Exactly.
It's something that I've thought about and gone up to some of the Twin Peaks locations right up there in Washington too. It would be cool.
I guess if I ever
Get
make
that
it
cherry
back
pie.
up, I guess if I ever make it back up to Mountain Lake, I could do a little video about that. Yeah, there haven't been too many locations I've been to, but there are some.
I've seen the Summersby location, and of course we used to have the Summersby house nearby.
I've probably been in some of the marshes where they filmed The New World, and I've definitely been to Mountain Lake where they filmed scenes for Dirty Dancing. I think I've been to the same part of Smith Mountain Lake where they did What About Bob, but I can't remember for sure. But there's a few. And of course, they filmed Lincoln all over Richmond. You can't even tell where they filmed it. They did.
Oh yeah, well they did. They did an excellent job.
Filming locations. I live in New York, so I've been to a lot of filming locations that you've seen in a lot of movies and TV shows.
Yeah.
I used to live in Salt Lake City, Utah, so I've hit up filming locations from the Halloween sequels and Carnival of Souls.
And of course, I've actually been in 2 movies, so I've been in those filming locations. Although, from what I can tell, the 19th has never seen the light of day. I can't tell. But Berkeley Plantation is where they filmed scenes from Major Payne. And that's an unsung film.
You have a little,
amazing.
background extra part in that, if I believe.
Yeah, very small part. But anyway, my jerk brother let me do all the work and took a role in turn. I did all the work and he got the role.
So when they go back into the restaurant following that, which I've heard the restaurant's no longer there, which is a sad thing, but it was kind of old looking anyway.
Down to
But they found out the treasure must be.
It probably wouldn't have passed the health codes.
It's kind of weird that the thing is open, considering how run down it looks.
Yeah.
And of course, they ask for water at the restaurant. We already went over the part where they do the tongue thing. But come on now, would any of you have even drank that water?
No.
I think one of them actually takes a sip of it.
No. I'm like, that's not
Yeah,
water.
no way.
I'm sure that place even had running water.
I mean, if you had some place like that, I could imagine that there's probably enough like rust in the water that it probably turned it brown. I could see that. I've seen that
It was
before.
probably rust.
Probably,
But of course,
well, it gives you some iron.
But it does give the very first appearance of Sloth, where you've got Jake kind of doing his little opera routine and kind of feeding but kind of torturing him at the same time. As a kid, that scared the crap out of me. I don't know about the rest of y'all,
Yeah, it's
but
gnarly.
Which part? The opera, the feeding, or the torture?
all together. Because he's like sitting there like he pushes the food plate and he's like, ah.
Nice.
Well, the first time you see the movie, you don't know if he's going to be a nice monster, you know? It might
That's
just be
true.
the bad kind, you know?
And of course, they do use Sloth to tell yet another fat joke at Chunk's expense. So, like, they hear him growling, and he's like, "Did you hear that? Chunk's your stomach," or something like that. And I was like,
yeah, because when they sneak back in after they all flee, they do take a quick look, and they all get scared away.
yeah.
And they find out that thanks to again Chunk's slight clumsiness.
Yeah.
That there's a hole underneath the fireplace that they can get under and get at the caves below.
And this is also where we have the scene that Dave was alluding to with the ice cream in the freezer and the.
Yes, go for it, Dave. Now you're going to talk about. You can talk about the ice cream scene.
Well, obviously, Chunk is human food radar to wherever food is. So he finds himself in the freezer in the diner cafe, which is what this cabin is. Kind of, it's kind of like a summer restaurant that's closed or whatnot. But he finds the freezer and finds some relatively still frozen ice cream. So I'm not even sure if it was frozen. I mean, when he was eating it, it looked like it was like syrup by that time. But in any case, the others realize that there is a dead body, and it just so happens to be one looking like one of the foreclosure people that was looking to buy the land from certain people. So.
Well, one of them's like one's a Fed. One of them was a Fed.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't think it was one of the foreclosers. If it was, that makes it Fratellis good guys.
That was one of the Feds that was after him. And you actually hear the gunshots at the beginning, and they're like, "Huh, what's that?" I can't remember what they said it was. They kind of excuse it away because they were just like willfully ignorant of it.
Yeah.
Chuck was the only one that was actually on top of it this time. The rest of them were like willfully ignorant of everything. It's like, nah, they're just eccentric.
It was like, and Chunk, we kind of didn't, I don't think we mentioned, Chunk kind of, he had witnessed it, first of all, the chase scene.
The only one that saw it.
No one believed him. And he found his way into the garage, and he saw the car with the bullet holes, and the bullet holes is like, bullet holes. He goes and tells them, and then no one will believe him. It's like, yeah.
And of course, after they get kicked out of the restaurant, of course, the brother and the brother catches up, and he's about to take him home. But thanks to the two girls showing up, and then being scared by a dead fish on a rake.
Which would scare someone if they stepped on a rake and a big dead fish flopped up in their face.
They ended up basically deciding to just hang around after all, and that's how they got to that point.
Yeah.
And then we get to the real pirate stuff, the actual like booby traps.
Yep.
And we talked about Chester Cobblepot
Yeah.
like earlier on, and then they find him. He didn't seem to make it that far, actually.
No, he didn't. He kind of sucked as a treasure hunter.
He got killed by like the first trap.
Well, they don't do very much better at the first part. I mean, they take a tripwire that's already been tripped,
Yeah.
and they pick it up and they pull on it.
Yeah. Always a good idea.
But what did you think of the, just in general, we had a couple of traps in this, and what did you think of just how cool that trap was with the big hanging slab? You can even see them hanging and dangling during the scenes before it happened.
Right.
Oh yeah. I mean,
it's a great introduction to the fact that this is going to become life or death for sure.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they follow that with the whole bat scene.
Yep.
And they've left Chunk up there to go get the police. And a lot of people, they said in the actors that they never actually, until the movie premiered, they never even knew what Chunk was doing. The other actors, they didn't know what Chunk was doing while they were doing their thing. So they were just as surprised and frightened by some of the stuff he was going through as he was when he first did it. So it's kind of a cool aside there. But you have your bats that get released, and of course the whole pipe scene.
Cool.
So do y'all remember the pipe scene where they're banging on the pipes trying to get people's attention? It turns out that they're the pipes underneath the country club.
Right.
yeah.
Funny.
It does set up a nice scene with Sloth later, which is definitely a highlight of the movie for me.
And Chunk does not get very far in his escape, as he is picked up immediately. As he goes down
He
the
runs right into the arms of the Fratellis, actually.
Yeah,
Flags them down.
It's like, these disgusting people, they're the Fratellis, and they turn on the lights. Like,
Yeah, that was kind of a foolish thing to do before you could actually see them.
I did not realize this when he was when they were actually doing the scene until I watched it in the subtitles, whereas Chunk is actually saying something in Hebrew as the guy is starting to sing in Italian. His little opera thing, which is kind of an interesting little tidbit.
Yeah, that is cool. I never noticed that before.
Amazing things you do when you have a hard time hearing things and you need the visual. And that leads to the interrogation scene. Which,
oh man!
Which we get to see, where they take the tomato and they start putting it in the blender, and everything is dirty as all heck. So, and then basically Chunk decides he's going to confess every sin that he has ever committed.
Yes.
In that whiny little voice. In that whiny little cry voice. And I was just... You know?
He's a badass little kid. I mean, he's lying to people, lying to the police when you hear him call the police. He had the Gremlins reference there where they talked about that. And, you know, he did that thing in the opera where he took the fake vomit and caused everybody else to have like this, what was it, lard-ass vomit eruption thing from Stand By Me.
And I was amused to read that apparently that was based on something Spielberg himself actually did.
Oh my God. Wow.
Such lovely things. And that's when the bats come out and of course they say, you know, oh, they're after you. Like they can hear them.
Yeah.
So really and truly at this point, the story has split in two. You've got Chunk's parts where he's with Sloth, and you've got the parts with the main Goonies. And they run into several areas. One of them, which is the most iconic area, is where they're in the wishing well. And you've got a ton of iconic lines that happen there, and of course the major speech by Mikey at the end, which is a very heartfelt speech. But of course the one I remember the most is of course Mouth's line in that. Not this one. This one's mine. I'm taking it back. I'm taking it all back.
Yeah.
This was my dream.
Yeah.
It is, and it's a powerful scene there for sure, because there's that moment where they think they found the treasure, you know.
Yeah.
Then it turns out to just be change, you know.
Or he finds Martin Sheen on a
Yes, Martin Sheen.
That was an amazing stage setup, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
And they do get the option to escape with the douchebag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
So-
doesn't happen.
So the
No.
question is, would you have gone up on Troy's bucket?
No.
No.
Knowing that his dad's going to tear my house down the next day, probably not.
I'd probably have kicked the bucket more than anything else. If I had a choice of going up in the bucket or kicking the bucket, I'd just kick the bucket.
Well, there were plenty of opportunities in that cave to kick the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Merte, as Mouth said.
So what did y'all
Yeah.
think of Mikey's speech for that? That was an amazing speech they wrote with the music combined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all actually had the same feeling as I did with that particular one.
It was an inspirational speech. This is our time. Yes.
Yeah, it's the adventure of their goddamn lives, you know. Like that's the point of the movie. That's another point that really sells you on the spirit of the whole thing, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Check
I
this
wouldn't have wind up in that bucket just because I want to see how this adventure is going to turn out. Already, you know, I'm invested in it.
And that's
Yeah.
the thing, because when you're watching this, you want to be right down there with them. You want to be there, even if it's dangerous. You want to be on the adventure. You want to see it. And you're like, no, I'm not going up on that bucket. Screw them. Whereas
Yeah.
an adult watching this for the first time, you might actually think to yourself, well, maybe I would go up on Troy's bucket.
Nah, he's a douchebag.
So, I'm trying to move forward pretty quickly here, so let me know if I miss anything. Of course, you have the scene where, of course, they decide to go to the bathroom, and of course, you have the scene where Andy decides she's going to give Brand a kiss, and with her eyes closed, and Brand sends Mikey in, and
He ends
Mikey
up
gets
getting
his
his
first
braces
kiss.
clean.
Yes, he does.
And Steph is sitting there laughing her ass off at it.
Yeah.
Next time you do it with your eyes open, it's a whole different experience.
And doesn't she
This
come
is
out too and say something
true.
like, "I think Bran was standing in a hole
Yes.
because he was so
Yeah.
much shorter."
He was so short.
You better watch out. There must be a hole here. I think Bran is standing in it.
Yeah.
But the Fratellis catch up to them. And this is where they have the frantic run. And they have the waterfall cave, which, of course, is used again in the music video. And Data, of course, he actually, I forgot about that. They also had used the copper stones, the copper bone triple stones. So Data kind of saves the day twice because, one, Data manages to keep himself from dying using his crotch grabber attachment. And
Mm-hmm.
the other time he uses the slick shoes, which results in a very comical scene with the Fratellis.
Mm-hmm.
What are y'all's thoughts about those?
Oh, for
Well,
sure.
let's go ahead. Go for it for us.
Awesome. I wish I had a pair. As a kid, I wish I had a pair of them.
Who didn't want to be Data with
Oh,
all
yeah.
the cool like inventions he had? Even like the flashlight that lasts for like 2 minutes and blinds
Mhm.
everybody.
I don't think it lasted that long, actually.
Or having a spring-loaded boxing glove on you for when
Right.
time calls for it.
And he needs that spring-loaded boxing glove because he has to help keep them at bay while Andy tries to remember her piano lessons from 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
As she plays one of the coolest looking pianos or
Oh, God,
coolest
that's
looking organs
epic.
I've ever seen.
I love that piano.
And that is probably one of the most tense scenes in the movie, if you think about it. Because every time when I was a kid, I was like all tense for that. Because the floor was dropping out for every bad note she hit.
The bottom of it.
And of course, they also had the Fratellis closing in on them, so they had to do it quickly too. So it was just a really intense scene. What are y'all's
and
thoughts
they cut
on
it close. Oh, it's insane, like you said, man. I'd put that on par with anything else and any other like adventure movie I've seen like that. Easily a situation you could imagine Indiana Jones being in or something. So,
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I agree.
And of course, then they go to the water slides, which the kids have said the ones of us that got to go on it, it was fun as heck. Richard Donner made a comment on the commentary. It's like, yeah, at nighttime when y'all were away, we'd turn them on and just go down them like for fun. Which you couldn't tell because he was lying his ass off through half of the darn commentary. So he may have been lying, but you know, it was a. I mean, if I had those cool water slides, I'd be taking them down. And they go into the. They come in, and of course, then you get the view. As you said, they didn't know about how awesome this prop was before, and then they got to see the pirate ship for the first time. Except if you're Corey Feldman and you claim that you actually got to see it once beforehand, but
oh man, that had to have been amazing. I mean, it is one hell of a pirate ship for sure.
Can you imagine acting in this movie and then you get this reveal for the first time and you realize this isn't just a soundstage, it's a freaking pirate ship.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, and it's like it sells you on the movie hard, especially like first time watching this thing. It's, you know, that pirate ship just makes it as epic as we all feel like it is already at this point. And then boom, they actually found like an entire pirate ship.
And we've gotten to see it because Dave has been right in front of it the whole time. So what's it like, Dave, being right there with the pirate ship?
It's awesome there, mateys. The sharks are swimming around me, mates, and it's just total chaos. But I'm ready when you are.
Careful that giant octopus, man. He didn't make it in the movie, but he's out there.
You gotta watch that.
That was where the and of course between then and getting on the pirate ship is where the octopus scene was supposed to go. If they had put it in, who here actually watched that scene, the deleted scene with the octopus?
Oh,
I haven't
so
yet.
many times.
But it still got mentioned at the end.
Oh yeah, because Data mentioned it's like the octopus. They didn't know it was going to be taken out of the movie.
I actually think that would have been one part that I would have kept in the movie. That would have been kind of cool, you know.
I think many of them thought it was too Ed Woodish in there.
I still like it. I mean, but I can understand it from both sides. It is kind of missing that big creature encounter type thing from most Quest movies, but at the same time, it is supposed to be somewhat rooted in reality. So giant octopus. I don't know if it was the movie suffers without it, but it would have been cooler if they could have done it in a way where they were happy with it and able to leave it in, you know.
So Jake, you're our nature expert. How many giant octopuses are in the Pacific Northwest, like in a cave like that?
If I recall correctly, I believe there is a large octopus native to the Pacific coast, but it would not be probably found up in a cave quite like that.
I mean, large enough it could struggle with a man at the bottom. You know, like you wouldn't want one getting too frisky with you, but no, they're
probably
not giant. You know,
not like the size they had in the movie there. So of course they get on the ship. They see they get the treasure. Mikey has his heart to heart with Willie. And I always thought it creeped me out when he looked under the eye patch, and of course you saw I was missing. And of course he had this thing, it's like, I'm going to be honorable about it, and I'm going to let Willie have his share, which you find out is actually a wise choice.
Yeah.
Like in Indiana Jones, you chose wisely.
Yeah.
And everybody stacks up on treasure, but little do they realize that the Fratellis had already made their way aboard. And that, and I'm just going to go quickly through this, and then we're going to come back to this a little bit. So we have the Fratellis. They kind of frisk them and make them walk the plank, but they are saved by Chunk and Sloth, who have followed them. And of course,
hey, you guys.
And of course, you gotta love the scene where Sloth is at the pipes, and you hear the wreck and the woman scream behind it. But yeah, so eventually leading them to escape the cave when a booby trap is triggered. So what did y'all think of that giant bit of stuff that happened? Anything that you love about that?
Oh, I love that part where like they frisked him down and Mouth is being all quiet and they pick right up on it, and then he's got like that massive pearl necklace in his mouth. And I think some rubies too and stuff.
That part was cool.
Corey Feldman claims people come and ask him about that all the time. It's like, yes, I did that all in one take.
That's awesome. Well, then, I mean, you got that classic pirate action with Sloth when he swoops down in there and saves the day, and it's just great, man. I mean, there's the way the skeleton on the ship looked, all of it. It was that. I mean, I'm sure a massive amount of the budget of the movie went into making all of that as awesome as it is, and it pays off.
I mean, you gotta admit, this was pre Pirates of the Caribbean movies. So having those skeletons look as uberly creepy as possible, along the way, especially, I mean, I wouldn't have minded taking a tour of that ship with all them skeletons on board, and maybe having some characters pop out and scare you or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That
Unfortunately, it is no more. Though the skull of One-Eyed Willie is apparently still this day in the office of Richard Donner.
Oh,
I'll buy that.
So yeah, so. With that, of course, everybody makes it out to safety, and of course, you have your scenes of reuniting with the parents. But of course, all the money has been taken, except for Mikey's bag of marbles, which ends up saving the day because it ends up being a bag of gems. And
which isn't the only pirate movie that I know that has something to do with marbles. So. Hook actually had the marble.
He had lost his marbles. Maybe
he
those
did.
were the
Yeah,
marbles.
he did lose his marbles.
He really lost his marbles.
And of course, nobody believes them, but then they're looking at like, oh my God, as they realize that the pirate ship is actually out there sailing. And that. So, which of course ends up wrapping up the movie. Any other thoughts about the ending scenes?
In a way, with the pirate ships scene, I'm kind of reminded of the animated Peter Pan, where the father actually sees the golden ship up in the sky, and he's like, "I haven't seen that since I was a boy."
Yeah. There's a little bit of that vibe, yeah.
I used to always wonder who was, piloting this ship, but I'm fairly certain it's the octopus now, the more I think about it.
Yeah, could be.
But honestly, the ending is just a way to kind of prove the kid's story isn't entirely fabricated. So, because evidently the Goonies have been frequented as being the boys who call Wolf a little bit too much.
Well, definitely Chunk.
Especially Chunk.
It's a good ending. I mean, it's, of course it's awesome that they've got the gems at the end, because they can, obviously, I'm sure that stuff has to be worth a fortune, Yep,
they're saved with their houses are saved. But the Fratellis are arrested, and Sloth apparently goes to live with Chunk.
Yep.
So, with that being said, I'm going to move on to special effects real quick, music, and then we're going to try and keep moving to where we can, so Jake can get off and leave.
I just have one thing to say before we do that. Just the fact that the guy who played Sloth, he evidently died on my birthday. So,
that's
that was kind of crushing when I saw that because my birthday is the 17th. It should be something that should be cherished. But Sloth died on my birthday. Fuck you.
You killed him, Dave.
He had a lot of injuries from his career as a football player.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, that scene where he was lifting up Chunk, where they're screaming, which of course he wasn't going to do because of sports injuries and so on, and that's what they told Chunk. But then Donner decided, because he's an asshole, that you know what, I'm just going to have him do it anyway and not tell him. So kind of that terror on Chunk's eyes is actually real as he's lifting him up and screaming in his face and kissing him on the lips, because that was all like, you didn't realize that was coming.
Yeah.
So with that, of course, let's talk about special features. We got some amazing effects on this film. I mean, the sound stages that they engineered.
Oh, amazing! Yeah, Sloth looks great. You know, the prosthetics they put on that guy worked out really good. And then, of course, you know, we've all heaped praise upon the pirate ship, but I think that, like you said, those sets are definitely a highlight of the movie in terms of effects. I mean, and just that bone organ on its own. Good Lord.
And it was a functional pirate ship. It had the rooms and all of that in it. They were able to use that function out, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and of course there was the booby traps with all the Rube Goldberg stuff. That was amazing.
Yes, for sure.
Hey, I just got to say one thing. The pirate ship was entirely real. All the shots were filmed in the ship, but after the film, it was offered to anyone who would take it.
Yeah.
I would have taken it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I probably would have too, yeah. Don't know what I'd do with it, but
I'd put it in my backyard.
Yeah, here too. If I had
just move into it and live in it, dude.
Right? Noah's Ark the shit.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, next time there's a flood, I got a pirate ship.
Right.
Yeah, Industrial Light and Magic did create a 5-foot replica of the ship for the final shot.
Mm-hmm. And apparently there's also a model of that ship in Richard Donner's office.
The actual ship itself was destroyed.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah, that is.
It's I did like in the commentary where they're like, so is it true that you ended up walking off with some of those doubloons? Talking to Corey Feldman, he's like, look, I'm strapped for cash most days. You think those wouldn't have ended up on eBay if I had walked off with those things?
Yeah.
But as far as music, we really cannot leave this without talking a little bit about the music. I mean, it was a very amazing score.
Oh yeah, perfectly captures the feel of the whole movie, I think.
Here's something. Evidently, the production designer, J. Michael Riva, apparently he did say in an interview that before shooting the first scenes with the prop of the map, he thought it looked good, but not old. So in his hotel room, he aged it with coffee, and when he couldn't find paint, he used his own blood.
Yeah, I read that too. Yeah.
So, as far as music, I think it was you, Jake, that said that kind of like a lot of the themes in some of these movies tended to sound alike. I think we were talking about, what film was it? I can't remember. Do you feel like this one had a similar bent to it, to some of these old themes? Like it was...
I don't feel like I remember it very well on its own, but I feel like it was fairly... It definitely was a good part of the film, if that makes sense. Like it... Like I know there was at least one part where they blatantly inserted a bit of the Superman score.
Yes.
And there were a couple of other parts where the music kind of called attention to itself. But overall, I don't think it really called attention to itself, but I think it really worked. So,
what about like I know you said maybe not called to, but what about Cyndi Lauper's theme of this song?
Oh yeah, well that's fairly notable. And it is prominently featured in one part of the film, yeah.
Actually, Cyndi Lauper was apparently she was embarrassed by that song for a time and refused and refused to play. She refused to perform it, but eventually she it's now like part of her regular set.
Huh.
Because the fans loved it so much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not a bad song, really.
No.
And I'm sorry, but if I hear that song, I always think Goonies.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know it's late, so we'll go ahead and get wrapping up. Why don't we go with favorite scenes? And since I know you've got to be at work, me too, but since I'm hosting, I'm going to leave it a little bit later. So, Jake, why don't you tell us, and I already told you what's coming up for the next month anyway.
Yeah.
You got the spoilers.
Spoiler alert. Oh,
So
yeah,
why don't we get
spoilers for this movie.
So why don't you give us not just your favorite scene, but give us your outro. That way you can go on ahead and get some sleep.
Okay, that's probably a good plan. I think we've already touched on a couple of my favorites. Like, I really liked, I did really like where Mouth was giving the quote unquote translation to Rosalita. I was very amused by that. And that little speech Mikey gives is pretty, tugs at the heartstrings a little. And then I guess you can't not pick "Hey You Guys" as one of the classic scenes. I mean, yeah, that's probably it. And yeah, I'll go ahead and get my outro. And Kotobuki Jake, I'm the co-host of Septum Sin vs. the World. Frequently guest on this channel, and of course Delusions of Grandeur as well, where we had a fun little discussion about bad CGI sharks, because how could you not have a fun discussion about
none in this film.
Sharks? Yes, none in this film, sadly. They almost had a bad CGI octopus, apparently, but
That animatronic octopus.
Well, yeah, it was probably more animatronic, but you know what I mean. But yeah, and I'm a movie collector and fan, and would-be reviewer who really, frankly, seldom has the time. And yes, I do have a channel, Kotobuki Jake, dedicated to nature and the natural world. It's probably still there. I haven't checked in a while. I do plan to update it. I just need time. I'm working very long hours right now. And which is why I need to get moving along. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good
Night, bud.
So, Forrest, what is your favorite scene? And of course, go ahead and do your outro while you're at it.
Okay, I guess favorite scene would probably be the scene where Chunk is getting interrogated by the Fratellis. That just because I just love how Jeff Cohen just completely goes off, off on tangent. I'm Forrest Bennett. I'm a producer on I'm a producer on the upcoming slasher flick Camp Murder, as well as another movie coming out next year called Strix, based in Long Island, and I'm based in Long Island, New York.
Awesome.
All right. Well,
and a little tidbit about the Fratelli's Chunk scene. Apparently, Richard Donner, when he heard him start to cry, Chunk, he had an uncontrollable fit of giggling that apparently he did, which was captured in the background around as he was crying.
Mm-hmm.
That was still left in the movie.
Richard Donner has some pretty dark moments, especially if you look around the movie The Twilight Zone, which if we cover that movie, we will cover those dark moments and why I don't really care for Donner that much. But we will definitely move along. So, Mo, what was your favorite scene? And give us your outro.
I definitely would second Forrest on the interrogation. Like, all the scenes you guys have mentioned so far are great and could equal as favorite scenes, but I never fail to laugh my ass off at that confession. And it's something you see used in other movies sometimes, like where someone just spills the beans about way more than what they're actually supposed to be. But it's still a favorite example of that for me, for sure. He just sells it so well too, man. His grating little annoying kid voice, and I actually like it. You know, I think I would be right there with Jake of like the quality of Chunk's voice is something that sticks with you from the movie. So you hear it, and yeah, it might be grating to other people, but it's almost nostalgic for me. You know, or like his little huff thing that he does when he's panicking. That's just amazing. Yeah. So that would be it. And I am Mosley. I do videos for my channel, Drunken Master Studios. Recently started reviewing some Dragon Ball Z feature films, so I've got one up for the first one, Dead Zone, and I will have one up for World's Strongest and Tree of Might by this time tomorrow. Also doing some Kaiju quarantine stuff, so look forward to more Gamma reviews. And sub up myself and Rebel Gaming Club, going to be doing more stuff with them in the future.
Camera. So my favorite scene is, of course, the scene where Sloth is basically on there and like, "Hey, you guys!" It's just such a cool scene, very iconic. I'm Septum Sen of Septum Sen versus the World. Of course, we cover a lot of movie reviews. Well, not so many as lately. But we have been doing some release news and some pickup videos, occasional podcasting. And one thing we are trying out, just as a fun thing, is we are trying out some... We're practicing on some Let's Plays. So I have part 1 actually coming out on Thursday of an Outer Worlds kind of playthrough with the stupid character. And we're going to see how it goes from there. I'm just going to take it as it will. And I'm hoping that I can get my wife in on doing one for Halloween, just sort of like a horror game, as well as our Horrorween. And that's also something cool that's coming up. We've got a couple of other awesome things on the channel. Monday of next week, we have our anime discussion about Gunslinger Girl, and that's going to be awesome. And of course, that's going to be at 8 p.m. Or 8 p.m. Eastern. But at 10 p.m., we are going to do a follow-up of the Goonies, which, depending on if Dave wants it or not, can also post on this channel. So we're going to do a little follow-up, and we've got a special guest star there, but you'll have to tune in to find out who it is. So with that, I also work with Inside Movies Galore, so I wanted to throw out some things. Of course, our next month is going to be Halloween month, and all the votes are in. We did a lot of stuff. We talked with all of you people out there. We took your suggestions. We tallied the votes and took the top 2 of each group and submitted them to a final vote to everybody. And we were able to come up with our lineup for October. So I'm going to go ahead and give you all that lineup. So on October 6th, we're starting with, of course, we're going to end our X-Strike study, which is going to be with their last film, Resident Horror. And then our main event is going to be Event Horizon. Then on the 13th of October, we're going to do American Psycho as a pre-show. And Vampire Hunter D is our main show. So we actually get some anime on. On the 20th, that's going to be the week of our Dane Kyle's birthday, or Dame Dameron, whichever way you call it. And he's chosen Last Samurai and Barton Fink as his films. And last but not least, on the 27th, we're going to have the 1988 film Night of the Demons as a pre-show. And From Dusk Till Dawn as our main show.
So it's a hell of a lineup.
We have one heck of a lineup this month. I think we've got some very fun events. And I look forward to it. I don't know about the rest of y'all. But of course, our month is not over yet, but we have at least one birthday to celebrate, which is Mo's birthday next week.
Oh, my birthday's coming up Friday.
Oh, happy birthday!
Oh, nice.
We will have to note that next year for our stuff. So if you're still with us next year, we will make sure to include you in our birthday stuff. So let's see here. So Forrest is on the 25th, huh?
Yep, same day as Mark Hamill.
The
Same
same
day as
day
me,
as
dude.
Mo. Yeah, I was gonna say y'all
Yeah.
share the same birthday. Well, I don't know whether this birthday discussion will apply to you, but we are going to be doing the Ballad of Cable. Was it Hugh Hogue?
Okay.
Oh.
Is that right? And Lady Hawk. Both, I don't know about the first one, but I know that the second one is a fine film. So I very much look forward to it. So I hope to see you all next week. And I'm going to hand it over to Dave for his scene and, of course, our outro.
I would have to say that my one of my favorite moments is when Mikey goes up to One-Eyed Willie, and he realizes after his little speech to Willie saying hello, a private hello or whatnot, and saying, no, his grandfather father and him, hello, One-Eyed Willie, and then he pulls back and sees that everyone has come in, and he's like, well, go ahead, take what you want, and then they start reaching for the One-Eyed Willie's treasure, and he's like, wait a minute, let Willie keep his gold. Anything else, take what you want, So, to me, that was a very honest moment in the whole film, and though I enjoy the gadgets that Data has and all that jazz, and I enjoyed the moment that they showed the pirate ship and stuff. I enjoy the movie as a whole. So, in any case, my name is David Streggy. I am one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. Thank you for taking your time to check our channel out. It's been an enjoyable time to show you a little bit of the madness that comes with our minds. So some of the films that we watch and enjoy are a little peculiar, but please don't think anything less or more less of us for that. But in any case, thank you for I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, which I do have to get back to doing a few reviews and a couple more video pickups. But I wanted to mention it because I do go on about shit about it, and I would love for you to check out what I personally say on some things and some of the things I pick up myself. So thank you for listening. Have a great day, evening, and morning wherever you are. Appreciate your time spent here on the page, and shall we end the whole thing with doing Sloths? Hey you! What was it he said?
Hey, you guys!
Hey you guys!
Guess that was it.